not aim a single glance in Wei Wuxian's direction. He nodded his head politely and quietly said, "First, release the spirit from suffering. Second, suppress it. Third, eliminate it." For the initial approach, use the loving memory of his parents, wife, and children to comprehend his deepest desires and fulfill them. If this fails, move to suppression. But if the crimes are too great and his resentment too bitter to dissipate, eliminate him root and branch. His continued existence must not be permitted. Cultivators must conduct themselves carefully in accordance with the sequence of measures without error. Everyone released the breath that they had been holding and thanked the heaven and earth that the old man had picked Lan Wangji. If it had been their turn, they would have found it impossible not to overlook a few things, or would have confused the order of steps. Nodding his head with satisfaction, Lan Qiren said, "Not a single word misspoken." After a moment, he spoke again. Regardless of whether one is acting as a cultivator or simply a human being, one must stand on foundations as firm as those which have just been displayed. If one becomes arrogant and self-satisfied because of successes against a few local monsters or ghosts, thus making an empty name for oneself, then disgrace will come sooner or later. Wei Wuxian raised his eyebrows and, glancing at Lan Wangji's profile, thought, "So the old man's after me after all." He called his prize student in to attend the lecture to make me watch. He said, "I have a question." "Speak," Lan Qiren said. Wei Wuxian said, "It's easy to say that the first thing you should do is grant the ghost's wishes. But that's often impossible. If all he wanted was a new set of clothes, of course it would be easy. But if it's to kill someone and their whole family for revenge, then what?" Lan Wangji said, "Thus, release from suffering is a primary strategy. Suppression is supplementary, and elimination the last resort." Wei Wuxian smiled slightly and said, "Isn't that a waste of resources?" He paused for a moment, then said, "The reason I didn't give an answer wasn't because I didn't know it. I was only thinking about a fourth solution." Lan Qiren said, "I have never heard of a fourth solution." Wei Wuxian replied, "This executioner died a violent death, so it's inevitable that his body would turn into a fierce corpse. Since he beheaded over 100 people while he was still alive, why not dig up their graves and incite their resentful energy to use against him? 100 heads should be enough to fight one fierce corpse." Brows slightly wrinkled, Lan Wangji finally turned his head and looked at him with eyes of ice. Even Lan Qiren's beard started trembling. The old man shouted, "You arrogant! You have no idea of the height of the heavens, nor the depth of the earth." Everyone inside the elegant room stared at them in shock. The old man suddenly shot up. "The purpose of subduing demons and exterminating ghosts is to alleviate suffering. Not only have you forgotten this, you want to incite further resentment. You are inverting the means and the ends without a care for humanity. If some people's suffering can't be relieved, why not make it useful?" Wei Wuxian replied. "When you, the great, tamed the floods, redirection was the superior strategy, and obstruction the inferior. Suppression is like obstruction. It can only be worse." Lan Qiren flung a book at Wei Wuxian, who quickly ducked out of the way. The color of his face unchanged, he continued to run his mouth. "Spiritual energy is energy, but resentful energy is also energy. stored inside cores, spiritual energy is able to cleave mountains and drain seas and is available for human use. Why can't humans use resentful energy as well? Another book flew toward him. Lanchiren roared. How can you promise that it will obey you and never bring others to harm? Wei-Wuxian dodged as he said, I haven't thought of the answer yet. If you had figured it out, the cultivation world would no longer have you. Out, Lanchiren shouted. Having gotten exactly what he wanted, Wei-Wuxian immediately got up. He wandered around the cloud recesses and enjoyed himself, blowing on flowers and playing with the grasses for half the day. After the lecture was finished, the other students looked all over for him, only to finally find him atop the eaves of one of the high walls. Wei-Wuxian sat on the blue-grey tiles, a piece of grass hanging from his lips, his right hand propping up his cheek. One leg was propped up in the air, and the other dangled from the rooftop, swaying lightly back and forth. The people below pointed to him and said with laughter, Brother Wei, we admire you so much. The old man told you to get out, and you really did it. After you left, it took him forever to realize what had happened. His face turned purple when he figured it out. Wei-Wuxian chewed on the piece of grass and yelled down at them. He had questions for me, so I answered. He told me to leave, so I left. What else does he want from me? Niu Hui-sang said, Old Man Lan really seems like he's coming down especially harshly on you. Every time he reprimands someone, it's always you. Zheng Cheng grunted. He deserves it. What kind of answer was that? He can get away with saying that sort of nonsense at home, but he had the nerve to say it to Lan Chiren's face. He was practically asking for the old man to kill him. He won't like me no matter what I say to him, so I might as well say what makes me happy, Wei-Wuxian said. Plus, it's not like I blew up at him. All I did was answer his questions. Niu Hui-sang thought for a while and said, Actually, I thought what you said was very interesting, he said, not entirely able to hide his envy and yearning. To get spiritual energy, you have to cultivate it yourself, and you can only form a golden core with a lot of hard work. It takes years for people who are born without talent like me. It's like I'm missing something because a dog bit me when I'm in the womb. But all resentful energy comes from fierce ghosts, demons, and so on. So as long as you can take it, you can use it. How amazing would that be? A cultivator formed a golden core, a golden sphere inside their body after their cultivation reached a certain level of proficiency. With it, they could store spiritual energy for later use. And after forming the core, their abilities would suddenly take off. The more they cultivated, the more spiritual energy they accumulated. But cultivators had to surmount this high peak first, or else they could only be amateurs. Ordinarily, a son of an important house who had formed his core late would be too ashamed to bring it up. But Niu Hui-sang wasn't even embarrassed. Wei-Wuxian laughed and said, Right, not using it is a waste. Enough, Zheng Cheng warned. Whatever nonsense you spout, you better not head down that sort of dark road. Wei-Wuxian smiled and said, If I didn't want to walk down the big, sunny avenue right in front of me, why would I want to walk down some wooden plank in a shadowy ravine? If it really was that easy, someone would have done it a long time ago. Just relax. He was only asking, and I was only answering. Hey, are you guys coming? We should take advantage of the time before curfew. Come with me and hunt some pheasants. Hunt what pheasants? Zheng Cheng said reprovingly. Since when are there pheasants here? Why don't you go copy the collection of righteousness first. Lan Qiren told me to tell you that you need to copy the first section of justice 3 times so that you can properly learn the principles of virtuous human relations. The collection of righteousness was the book of the Lan clan's teachings. Originally, the teachings were far too long, so Lan Qiren had to revise and gather them into one extremely thick anthology, 4/5 of which was taken up by the section named Justice and the section named Rights. Wei Wuxian spat out the piece of grass in his mouth and patted off the dust that had gathered on his boots. Copy it 3 times, he asked. Just once could send me flying to heaven. It's not like I'm a member of the Lan clan, and I don't have plans of marrying in either. Why do I need to copy their house's teachings? I refuse. I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you, Nie Huisang said immediately. Anyone who offers favors out of the blue is hiding something, Wei Wuxian said. Spit it out. What do you want from me? It's like this, Nie Huisang said. Old Man Lan has a bad habit. Halfway through his sentence, he suddenly went silent, coughed dryly, unfolded his fan, and shrunk to one side. Wei Wuxian realized something was wrong and looked around. Sure enough, Lan Wangji stood beneath an old tree with lush foliage, carrying Bi-Chen and gazing in his direction. His whole body mottled by the sunlight and the shadows of the leaves, the boy looked like a magnolia tree in bloom. However, his gaze was anything but friendly. Being glared at by Lan Wangji was like being dropped into an icy cave. Knowing that they had shouted a bit too loudly to the rooftop, everyone shut their mouths on their own initiative, afraid that the ruckus had lured him over, except Wei Wuxian, who hopped to the ground and beckoned him over. Wangji, he called. Lan Wangji turned around and walked off, but Wei Wuxian chased after him gleefully, shouting, Brother Wangji, wait for me. The boy's fluttering white robes flashed behind a tree. Then, in the blink of an eye, every trace and shadow of him vanished. It was obvious he didn't want to speak to Wei Wuxian. Having only caught the sight of his back, Wei Wuxian decided that there was no point in trying to follow, so he turned to the others. He's ignoring me, he complained. Yeah, Nie Huisang said. Looks like he actually does hate you. Lan Wangji ordinarily isn't. No, he's never been this rude before. He hates me already. I was thinking of apologizing to him, Wei Wuxian said. Oh, so you want to apologize now? It's too late, Zheng Cheng said derisively. He's exactly like his uncle. He thinks you've been wicked ever since you were an embryo, so it's beneath his dignity to pay you any attention. Wei Wuxian noisily objected. If he decides to ignore me, he's just going to ignore me, huh? Is he really that beautiful? Thinking it over again, Wei Wuxian remembered that Lan Wangji was indeed very beautiful. In any case, he easily tossed that little lip-curling desire to the back of his mind. Another 3 days passed before Wei Wuxian learned what Lan Qiren's bad habit was supposed to be. The contents of the old man's lectures were incomparably long and tedious, and unfortunately, the students would be tested on their memory of all of it. The changes several generations of various clans had gone through, how their power was divided, famous names and famous sayings, their family trees. Listening to it was like trying to read a book written in the celestial tongue, and regurgitating it was like selling your body to slavery. Thus, Nie Huisang copied justice 2 times for Wei Wuxian, and when the exam grew close, he began pleading. Please, I'm begging you, Brother Wei, this is my 3rd year at Gusu. If I do badly, my brother really is going to break my legs. Direct relations, collateral relations, main clans, branch clans. There's too much to keep straight. Disciples from big clans like us can't even remember our own relations clearly. Once we're further away than second cousins, we just call everyone aunt and uncle. Who has the spare brains to memorize someone else's family tree? During the exam, little strips of white paper containing surreptitiously copied answers danced over the students' heads, causing Lan Wangji to suddenly spring up and see some of the instigators of this misbehavior. Lan Qiren's fury was now at its boiling point. He exploded and sent letters of complaint flying to each of the major clans. His heart was filled with pure loathing. Though this group of disciples was unable to sit still, previously they had nonetheless forced their posteriors to remain firmly planted atop their calves and hadn't caused any trouble. But when Wei Ying came and provoked the would-be miscreants who had larceny in their hearts but not enough guts to act on it without him egging them on. Now, if they wanted to go out at night, they went out, and if they wanted to drink, they drank. The atmosphere of corruption festered. Sure enough, this Wei Ying had turned out exactly as he had expected, as one of humanity's greatest threats. Zhang Fengmian's reply letter read, Wei Ying has always been like this. I am sorry that he has caused you so much trouble, sir. Please discipline him appropriately. Thus, Wei Wuxian was punished again. Originally, he hadn't given it much mind. Wouldn't he just be sentenced to copying some books? He never lacked helpers for that sort of thing. However, this time, Nie Huisang said, Brother, my hands are tied. You'll just have to endure this one. What? Wei Wuxian asked. Nie Huisang said, Old Mr. Lan said you have to copy both justice and rights. Of the 12 chapters that made up the Lan clan's teachings, rights was the thickest and the heaviest. It was extremely tedious and full of rare characters. It seemed to go on forever and constantly quoted the classics. Copying it once would sap his life of all of its color. If he copied it 10 times, he could ascend directly to heaven. He also said that while you're being punished, no one is allowed to fraternize with you or help you copy, Nie Huisang said. How could he know whether someone's helped me or not? Wei Wuxian questioned. Is he going to make someone watch me until I'm done? Yes, actually, Zheng Chang said. What did you say? Wei Wuxian asked. Zheng Chang replied, He's not allowing you out. Every day, you're going to go to the library pavilion and copy from that book. In the process, you'll conveniently be forced to reflect on your misdeeds. Of course, there'll be someone watching you. As for who it is, you don't need me to spell it out, right? Inside the library pavilion. 1 woven mat and 1 table. 2 candle holders, 2 people. One sat still and upright, whereas the other, Wei Wuxian, had copied over 10 pages of rights, and already he felt dizzy and faint. Bored out of his mind, he abandoned his pen in order to take a breath of fresh air and glance at the person sitting across from him. Back in Yunmeng, many girls from the Zhang clan had envied him because he was going to go study with Lan Wangji. They had said that the Gusilan clan produced generation after generation of beautiful men, and that among his generation, the twin jades were uncommonly beautiful. Before this, Wei Wuxian hadn't had the opportunity to scrutinize Lan Wangji's face from head on. Looking at it now, he indulged in some idle thought. He is pretty good-looking. I can't pick out a single flaw in his appearance or posture. But if only the girls all came here and saw him in person. No matter how beautiful his face is, his looks won't rescue him if he spends the whole day looking like he's mourning the death of his parents and scowling like he's nursing some kind of undying hatred in his heart. Lan Wangji was retranscribing a centuries-old book from the library pavilion's secret chamber. His writing was unhurried and precise, possessing a purity of line and angle. Wei Wuxian couldn't help but blurt out heartfelt praise. Nice calligraphy, top quality. Lan Wangji was unmoved. Wei Wuxian had really ever shut his mouth for so long, and now he felt unbearably suffocated. He thought, this person is so incredibly stuffy, and old man Lan wants me to sit across from him several hours every day for a whole month. Is he trying to kill me? Having thought this far, he couldn't resist leaning just a little bit forward.